Hello, I'm Mark.
And I'm Raquel.
This is episode 4 of Salvaging the Titanic, Dry Dock and Rebuild. So just a disclaimer, we're not relationship experts. You're not going to like everything you hear, but this is our story. This is going to be a dense, rich episode, so grab your chips and queso because your weekly telenovela is on. This will likely be an hour-long episode, be advised. I know we keep saying 10 minutes, 30 minutes. Let's just go with an hour, and hopefully we get a little less.
So a couple posts on my page this past week kind of vividly showed us why people don't normally do this, right? Why couples don't air out their issues, their past issues, and why Christians are viewed as judgmental, and why they typically don't talk about any of the struggles that they're having in their lives. We're gonna discuss hard topics. We're gonna keep it real. So to our fellow believers out there, understand that you normally don't hear this type of talk or conversation at church, even in marriage groups.
Nope.
They always keep it very PC, very Christ-like, forgetting that Jesus was a hobo who kept it real, and his message was delivered for the hearer specifically.
Yes.
So whether it was a Pharisee, a Bible scholar, or Joe Blow on the street, he delivered the message the way that person was going to hear it. So keeping that in mind, you may hear us occasionally say a word or two that might not tickle your ears, but we are keeping it real. Mm-hmm. This is us.
This is our story.
We kind of want to challenge our fellow Christians right now. The judgment that comes from a place of brotherly and sisterly love needs to also come from a place of love and grace. So, with that said, this past week, after a post that I wrote, I was in tears that night. I spent a few hours bawling my eyes out. I can't even express how much it hurt. Thankfully, we also received some positive feedback at just the right time. And we're actually going to go over a couple of those so that you guys can realize that what we're doing, God is definitely leading us to do this.
Yes.
Because normally a couple will not go on live or publicly put their business out there. And especially husbands tend to...
I've gotten a lot of feedback from men and from some of the wives that have spoken to me about that, that husbands would never go live or go and even get to the point where they feel like they could talk publicly about it.
He's no saint, though. This isn't Saint Mark, who's holier than thou and capable of putting his business out there.
I mess up every day, all the time.
So...
The first one, we'll go through some of the feedback we've gotten. I haven't watched your lives, but I did read your affair post. I see both sides, but it takes an amazing marriage to go through it better. I'm definitely opening my eyes in ways I never thought I would in 18 years of marriage, and I feel like our marriage is amazing for that reason. It's awesome. It's what we're looking for.
You are doing hard things. You'll never truly know all of the impact you guys are having on people and relationships, and people shouldn't feel so alone sitting in their shame and sins. We need to be doing life together instead of alone, near each other, especially Christians. That emphasis is mine there.
Thank you for sharing this. In my own life, I have seen this as true. It's a hard road for sure, but ultimately an affair happens for a reason, and secrets come so easily for a reason. And affairs force everyone to acknowledge the faults in the marriage and repair them. Yes, I completely agree.
And then it says, regarding a post on my page, I want to tell you that you are not alone. I just wanted to encourage you, keep the faith, and know that there are others like you. Bless you and your family.
I love it and is honestly helping my marriage. My husband would never open up to me, so after showing him y'all's videos and explaining that's exactly how I felt, it finally clicked for him. It was night and day for us.
So that's why we're doing this. We felt like, hey, we need to talk about this. We need to be real with this. Because again, in our search for finding resources to help us through it, we literally found no personal stories of couples that had gone through it.
True.
So
and counseling is unavailable. A crisis, pandemic, all of it. I mean, they've got apps now to help you find a therapist that you can connect with.
It's very
via chat.
impersonal. Yeah, it's very impersonal.
So
So we started in crisis mode. We're picking up on
the
night of and the morning thereafter.
After finding out, yeah. So for me, it was a visceral response. Anger, vomit on steroids. I was just yelling and,
And
how
I
could
just
you do this?
cried and cried and cried. That was
and-
my visceral response, just tears. Listening to him, I can honestly tell you that I don't remember a single thing he said to me, not a single word, but I can remember that it was hurtful stuff, It was painful stuff to hear.
Yeah. I mean, just anger spewing out of me and vomit. I don't even remember. Being honest
Picture
with
how
you.
a husband reacts to finding out his wife cheated on him.
Yeah, there you go.
All of it.
All of it. And then some, I'm sure. And then we had painful realizations. I realized that we weren't happy, and I had just become aware of, not really aware. I think subconsciously I knew we weren't happy, but I think I became consciously aware that we were not in a good place in our relationship or our marriage. And knowing that we weren't happy kind of hit me all at once.
But why was that?
I was emotionally shut down. Anger and all this, anger and frustration are like the first level of emotion. And once you get past the anger and the frustration and you actually get down to the root of emotions, those are just top layer emotions on top of things.
Pretty much any other emotion you feel just triggers the anger and the frustration that come out.
That's what comes out, and then you never get past it to get to the real root emotions of hurt and vulnerability and being able to discuss it and try and be a mature adult and talk about the real problems that you have in your marriage or your relationship that led you to where you're at. And then obviously a lot of the responses with Raquel and I talking about how I took responsibility for my portion of
the demise
of our relationship. A lot of people are like, well, that's victim shaming, blah, blah, blah. No one's victim shaming anybody. Raquel takes 100% responsibility for what she did, which is step outside of our marriage and have the affair. But I take 100% responsibility for getting her to the low point of our marriage and a low point in her life to get her to where she decided to cross that boundary. So that's my responsibility of it. And she takes her responsibility because the relationship is 100% me, 100% her, and 100% us and how we got there.
I realized the morning after I came downstairs and there was just something in me that was like, I don't want you to go. Even though I knew, and I knew there was going to be a lot more yelling and hurt feelings coming out. And it would have been easier to just let him leave because that was the plan that morning, that he was going to leave. I just came up behind him and I gave him a hug and I said, don't leave. And I'm telling you, part of me was like, why would you say that? Like, what are you doing? But I couldn't help it. It actually surprised me, and those feelings were there. I realized I wasn't done. Obviously, it meant I wasn't done. Couldn't just let him walk away.
Yeah.
At least not in that current state of all that happened was he let me have it. And I offered zero explanation at that point.
Yeah.
I was very just like, it is what it is. That's just what it is.
Yeah. So we go from there and we start doing beginning conversations. All right. And this is where I start asking questions. I mean, all kinds of questions about what happened, when it happened, all of it.
And I was willing to answer them. But I knew from past experience that when your spouse has an affair, you have questions. A lot of questions. Some of them seem inappropriate. Some of them seem like they're crossing boundaries. But I knew from experience that I had to be willing to answer them, if nothing else, just for his healing. Because obviously answering those questions wasn't going to do anything for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't justifying anything for me. It wasn't making me feel any better. But for his healing process, he needed to get the straight answers directly from me. So every time he would ask me a question, I'd take a big gulp, deep breath, and answer them.
Yeah.
And that's like step one. You have to be willing to talk about it. You have to be willing to speak up. Even if your goal isn't to repair your relationship.
And in the first 2 weeks, we didn't even know if we were going to repair a relationship or even we were going to have a relationship in a romantic set. You know, we even talked in that 2 weeks, we still talked about maybe we're just going to be co-parents and figuring that out. And in the idea that we were going to be co-parents, we talked about, you know, not affecting the kids. You know, the big thing, one of the things, again, I think I've said this before in other videos, is one thing I was very proud of, something that we decided right away, was that this was going to affect our kids at all. Mm-hmm. Like their life wasn't going to change. You know, we obviously still love, both of us still love our kids. So it's not going to change anything with them. And they were not going to be a bargaining chip or a bartering tool, or we weren't going to stay together because of them, you know, things like that. We weren't going to do any of that for them. We were going to do what we needed. If we were going to be together, it was going to be for each other. So in that first 2 weeks, we didn't even know if that was going to happen.
So, obviously counseling was out at that moment. Therapy was out. We decided to look up a podcast, see what we could find in that way. And we came across this podcast from the Love Hour, and it was called Trust Recovery After Infidelity. And it was with Morgan Johnson. She's based out of Austin, and she usually has a long wait anyway. So we're like, okay, not an option there. And the episode started with
she's going to teach
Kevin.
you how to cheat on your spouse and get away with it. Made us both laugh.
We just started laughing. We're like, oh my God. Like,
yeah. So it kind of set the tone for the conversations we were going to have, because, I mean, we needed that levity in the conversations.
Because we were dreading going into these conversations.
Yeah, obviously, we were both dreading going into these conversations.
But we both, before we decided to just walk away, or decided whether we were going to walk away or not, we needed to figure out what we did wrong and at least hear each other out. So in that, we learned that the involved person, which is the person who had the affair, is not a bad person. That this partner is also carrying a lot of hurt. And there was a trunk load of pain and stuff that went into this. Normally, in this scenario, when you first start talking, the partner that is also hurt, right? The partner that committed the infidelity doesn't feel like they have a voice or a place to say, well, I'm hurt too, and this is why. So hearing that, we both realized, like, oh, that's right. Yes, I did this and I hurt him. But he realized, like, oh yeah, but you're hurt. You're hurting too.
And I think that's one of the things that really helped with us, was the fact that, you know, realizing quickly, having the realization that how we got here was also my fault. You know, my fault on how we got to the spot where she could do the affair, have the R&V. And I think understanding that and going into it, looking at, okay, so our relationship wasn't perfect. It's not like, you know, I was winning Husband of the Year trophies and she just did this anyway. And I think going into it with that in mind was what helped us realize, like, hey, we both need to air things out. We both need to.
But at no point was like, I did this because in the past you blah blah blah. No, it's me accepting responsibility for me and my actions, and him accepting responsibility for his own actions. So I was very grateful that he kind of made that really easy. I didn't have to be like, yeah, but you did this.
You suck this way. You know, no, she didn't say that. But you know, understanding that, you know, this isn't something that happened. It would be naive and irresponsible of me to believe that this happened because of no fault of my own. Obviously, we had communication breakdown, we had resentment, contempt, you know, all these things that are just negative in our relationship that led to her feeling like she needed to do this to get closure, to get away from me, to get everything. And you know, understanding that is the first step you need to take as the person that was cheated on, for you to, because this isn't just about coming back together as a couple, because like I said, we didn't even know we were going to be a couple.
At that point when we decided to talk,
this is about healing yourself. This is about, you know, you as the person.
We didn't want to take this into the future relationship with anyone.
Yeah.
We didn't want to carry this as something that marked us.
We talked,
added more baggage.
We talked
to our
about this
issues.
not being the fabric of our story, and that's what happens.
Our personal stories,
our
not
personal
like our...
stories, not our relationship story, but our personal stories. You go into the next, let's say we had broken up, we gotten divorced, and
we still wanted to be able to be good co-parents.
Yeah, we still wanted to be able to have some sort of respect and communication with one another, so that we could, have a relationship where we can be in the same room with each other.
Our kids could tell that it wasn't like some animosity.
Yeah, there wasn't
us.
like this angry looking at each other and not being able to be in the same room with one another when we were together. So
we decided to obviously talk it out. And step one in talking it out is to what they call get stabilized. We have to set ground rules at that point. Speaking in kindness.
Yeah,
using I statements.
The biggest thing is to remember with kindness is remember that you love this person, or at least you love them at one point. You did, and you respect this person because you're with them. So that's where the kindness needs to come from, and the I statements, because you can only speak for yourself. You don't want to speak for your partner. I felt this way because I don't see how
9
you could
times
do
out of
this.
10 it came from I felt this way because at some point in my past I experienced XYZ and that made me feel that way. So when I heard you say this or saw you do this, it felt like that was triggered. And again, in those moments when that happened in the past, none of us realized it. We were just triggered by something and we were mad. And
what you want to stay away from really is I felt this way because you did that. You don't want to do that, because then that places blame on your partner that, you obviously, you as in us, we obviously didn't have a very good communication level at that point. So I couldn't speak for her because I had no idea what was her thought process or what was going through her mind because we weren't talking.
Yeah. So then we get to getting to the insight of things. Understanding that we were both hurt. Like, check, got it, we're both hurt. That anger is a secondary emotion.
Yeah.
That there are other emotions that underneath that usually just push anger to the surface. That's why I felt for many years that he only showed 2 emotions. Anger, sometimes frustration, they were kind of the same thing. And when he was happy. I could tell, that's it. I could tell when he was angry and when he was happy. I couldn't tell when he was concerned. I couldn't tell when he was worried. I couldn't tell when he was being pensive about something. There was just nothing else expressed. And guess what, guys? We have a lot more emotions in there besides anger, angry, and happy. It's not happy face or sad face. There's like a slew of things in between. But when you are emotionally shut down, those are the only 2 that come to the surface because they're already right there at the surface.
Yeah.
So we did listen to the 24 steps. There happen to be 24 steps from what we hear that couples take usually that lead to RNVs. Once again, RNVs are relationship norm violations. And that's anything that crosses the boundaries of your expectations or spoken or unspoken in your relationship.
Boundaries of your relationship, yeah. So we avoid conflict. We were suppressing our feelings. We substitute what's lacking.
Defensiveness towards your spouse. Maximizing your partner's negatives. If you start complaining about your spouse to your friends, oh my gosh, that is such a big indicator of there is a huge problem in your marriage. Because if you are genuinely communicating with your spouse and feeling heard, you should never feel the need to talk to anyone else about what your spouse is doing that is positive or even negative in any way, shape, or form. So that's another indicator. If you see any of these signs in your marriage, like feeling lonely, your sexual desire is decreased, becoming more vulnerable and seeking that connection with friends, whether male or female, opposite sex or not, seek help now.
You're getting to those last steps, which leads you straight to an RMV or
relationship
an affair,
norm violation,
or whatever it may be with the RMV.
The next step is secrets and deception after that, and
RMV time. Because the minute you start feeling lonely, or the minute you start feeling your sexual desire decrease, or you don't want to become vulnerable with your partner, and you start seeking that other places, then you're not going to tell your partner about it. So you're already starting to keep secrets.
You've already emotionally, basically, started to head down in that.
Head down the wrong path, and you're going to start keeping secrets. And then once you start keeping secrets, what's the difference of another secret?
And it doesn't even start out with like keeping secrets. It starts out with just not sharing what you're feeling or thinking. That's literally where secrets start. when you no longer feel comfortable sharing with your spouse what you're thinking or feeling because you're concerned about how they're going to take it, because it's going to start a fight, you've essentially headed down the path of emotionally being disconnected from your spouse. So the next step that we heard is called ATTUNE, which is awareness, turning, tolerance, understanding, and non-defensive responses, and then obviously empathy and all of that.
Yeah.
So we learned about bids and turns.
And this creates trust. The attunement method, it creates trust. So turning and bidding is simple as like, we realize it's as simple as being in the car and you say, hey, look at that XYZ, look at that tower, look at that whatever.
Sign.
And the other person turns,
Looks
and
acknowledges
what you're saying and engages you in conversation.
Or even just acknowledges.
Or
like,
just acknowledges, yeah.
That's it.
So
that's actually a bid, and that would be a turn. And this comes from a place of attachment science. Guys, there's science in this too. So if you bid and your spouse does not turn, that is actually something that feels like rejection, right?
Yeah.
So if we're watching TV, right? We're both watching TV, and I start reading something on my phone, and I'm like, oh, look at this. And he just keeps watching TV for a second. I'm like, hello? I'm trying to show you something. Yeah. I'm bidding. So make an effort to turn as quickly as possible. Like, don't wait. And I kind of wanted to leave this out, but I'll say it. A negative response to a bid is still better than no response, because no response flat out feels like rejection. Where a negative response, you at least still acknowledge your partner, and then you're like, well, that's stupid. That would be a negative response.
At least that would spark a conversation.
At least you
could start a
something.
conversation. Yeah, at least you could start a conversation.
The other thing is that basically in a relationship, you're asking two questions. Are you there for me? And do you love me? Right?
Yeah.
Am I getting it right?
Yeah, am I getting it right? Am I doing this right for our relationship, or do you love me? Those are basically two questions you're asking anytime you ask your partner anything. You ask your partner for anything, whether it be as simple as, will you hang out with me? You're asking, for their time. You're asking for attention.
Are you there for me?
Are you there for me?
Do you love me?
Do you love me?
That's why, my husband wouldn't do the dishes. He doesn't love me anymore. Feels like that way. It literally feels that way. That's how we are at the core. Anytime that we feel that our spouse isn't doing something for us, we start to internally question, like, are they there for me even? Like, do they even care? Do they love me? So then we talk about relationship cycles. Relationship cycles is connection, right? Like when you first meet, you connect with this person. And then when things start going sideways, you kind of disconnect when you have an argument, a disagreement. And then it's reconnection. It's like the most important step is reconnection. And we broke down in the reconnection part.
Yep.
We just stopped reconnecting. We
disconnect, then we wouldn't reconnect.
We just wouldn't reconnect. And every, further disconnection that we made, it's like we turned away from each other and just were walking in opposite directions. That's how people always grow and change in a relationship. But
if you're gonna grow together, you have to do the reconnection. You have to have that. I mean, it's we're not telling you that we never disagree. We're not telling you that we don't have arguments or whatever. But the arguments we have.
Let's talk about conflict cycle. Conflict cycle is how you typically resolve your differences or issues in your relationship. And it's not about, like he was just trying to say, it's not about not ever having conflict.
Yeah.
It's about learning to resolve the conflict in a way that is beneficial for your relationship at the end.
You can still be kind. You can still walk away with love and respect for one another. That's what it's about. It's about that, not... It's about how we discovered how we handled and mishandled the conflict.
Yeah, so that was one of the first conversations that we engaged in was like, dang, we definitely weren't. We kind of laughed when we heard about the reconnection. Like, we weren't reconnecting. We weren't reconnecting at all. We just kind of would and drop it, walk away.
Walk away.
That's not gonna happen. So we learned that we mishandled the conflicts time and time again. We discovered what our go-to was. And that was identifying the fact that we started to just avoid the conflict.
Yeah, we used to avoid it.
And so after that conversation, we decided, okay, let's develop a repair process. How are we from here on, even during our current conversation, how are we going to handle when you say something that upsets me, right? And how am I going to address something that you're saying that upset you? And so at that point, again, being kind, acknowledging the other person.
Taking the moment and acknowledging that you love this person and respect them, and that you want to not come at it from an unkind position. So this sparked a lot of conversations. We started talking and listening to each other with grace. I emphasize listening because a lot of times we talk about communication, people only hear I'm talking.
I told him.
Yeah, well, I told him, and you know, but you have to listen and try and process it, and your partner has to be patient that you need to process it.
So we started emptying out kind of like the trunk load of stuff that we had carried.
The mega van of truck stuff
that we had. 8 years in our relationship. Yeah. Little slights, little things like, oh, I remember this one time we were on vacation and it was supposed to be a baby moon vacation, and I told you don't fall asleep. No, I told you don't fall asleep. And you're like, okay. And then 2 seconds later, you fell asleep.
Out I was.
And I was like, dang, like, whatever. I went to the pool with the kids. I came back up. Like, I was trying to have a good time with them, but I was upset, and you're just sleeping. I was like, so when I come back up to the room, he wakes up. I told the kids, I was like, go ahead, wake him up. I don't care. Like, he been sleeping. And when he woke up, I wasn't being nice to him. I was upset because he fell asleep. And he woke up and was like, oh, what happened? Oh, you guys went to the...
But then she never resolved the conflict. So then it becomes
because I figured you should have just known what I was mad about, Isn't that what we do? Like, we always do that. You should know. I flat out said, don't fall asleep. And then, it happens. But it's because we're human. He was tired, obviously. But it was one of those things that we didn't resolve that because he didn't even say, oh, I'm sorry. Like,
and so it becomes resentment. And that resentment eventually becomes...
contempt towards each other.
So,
what we're going to say here is, even if you are sure that you want to divorce your spouse, that you don't want to work on this relationship with them anymore, you are done. This is unforgivable. Boundaries were crossed. This was a limit for you. We still encourage you to have these conversations with each other where you unpack all of it, being kind and listening to each other, because otherwise, you're going to drag all of this with you into your next relationship. And even if you're like, and I'm never getting in a relationship again, okay, well, it still now is becoming part of you. You're going to be walking around that bitter person.
And we're not. And it's not just about
impacted.
Yeah, and it's not just about a relationship with the next person. It's a relationship you're going to have with your children, a relationship you're going to have with your parents, a relationship you're going to have with other friends and family, and all these other things that are going to happen in your life. And you're going to take and make this be this black spot and be bitter, and no one wants that.
So, again, we did not stay together for the kids.
No.
When we started these conversations, we had no idea if we were even going to stay together. Nope. But we chose to unpack it all for ourselves, for our well-being. Because, from our past experiences and issues in our previous marriages, we never unpacked anything, not with them and not even alone. We just kind of like, well, that sucked and this is why, and move on. So regardless of your relationship outcome, that's where we're at. Regardless of our relationship outcome.
We've said that numerous times during this first 2 weeks. We talked about, it doesn't matter what ends up. We're going to figure out how to be co-parents. We're going to figure out how to be healthy co-parents. And these conversations that we had and unloading all this stuff and unpacking it all and figuring it out, it's about you being happy. It's about her being happy on her own and me being happy on my own, and so that we can be healthy, happy people. And then
together or apart,
and then we can discuss being together.
So, your self-image, your worldview, it all is like something that stems from childhood, right? Who you are as a person, who you are as an adult, starts from your childhood and past relationships, whether friends or romantic relationships. All of that trauma that comes with it, that is all a piece and ingredient of who you are now. It bleeds into every aspect of your life, of how you are at work, how you carry yourself around other people, to the point that you become this person and you don't even recognize that it is because of any of the trauma or life experiences that you have. It's just who you are. That's just what I think. That's just how I feel. You no longer even dive into the why you think that, why you feel that, what caused you
just carried it for
to be
so
that
long
person.
That
you don't recognize where it comes from anymore. So keep that in mind, that during this time and all of this, I still had feelings for the other person. In the back of my mind, in the front of my mind, I still felt that I loved him. And I didn't know what to do with those emotions. It was like I was trying to put a pause on that. I genuinely was like, okay, even if we decide to work on our relationship, how's that even gonna happen if I still have feelings for this person? And I can't just say, well, let me just choose not to have feelings for this person, and that's that, and everything will be great, right? We had discussions. We had discussions about that, and I had to be upfront with him and tell him, like, I still feel like I have feelings for him. And I knew saying that it was something that he wasn't going to like hearing that. Like, he flat out asked me in one of the conversations, like, did you love him? Did you tell him that you loved him? And I had to say yes, because that was the truth. So obviously later on in the conversation, as we're getting close to the end of 2 weeks, I had to say, by the way, I still feel like I love him. So what do we do?
What do we do?
How do I make that go away, or what do we even do with that? Like, how can this work if that's there? So we get to the monkey wrench that we saw at that time, where I brought up the subject that I brought up this week on my feed, and that was polyamory. I straight up, it came from a place where I was like, how do I feel like I love this person still? And at that point, I started feeling like, maybe I still do love you too. Like, I want to, maybe, like, how can I have those two seemingly conflicting feelings or thoughts going on at the same time? So started Googling it, right? Started just looking into it, and I brought it up to Mark one evening when we sat down to have our chats. And I was like, oh, check this article out. And what was your question?
Is this something that you want?
And I was like, I don't know. I don't think so. I think I'm just, I'm trying to figure myself out. I was trying to learn about me and how I was feeling and how I could feel that way. So it came from a place of wondering how some people can love two people at once, right?
Yeah.
That seems to be something that happens. And to be honest, that moment, it was just so scary for me to even bring it up. But I was like, you know what? What do we got to lose at this point? Again, we still hadn't even fully decided that we were going to be together.
Yeah.
So might as well just say, hey, what happens? What is, this polyamory thing? What do you think about that? And what did you think about that?
I was like, no, not for me.
Hell no. Not possible. Not doing it. Not ever. So after that initial response of his, I was like, okay, so let's see, though, what the Bible says about that, right? Because Google gave us articles that were
Secular
and con.
Pro and con.
There were secular ones, there were Bible-based ones, but even the Bible-based ones were pro polyamory and anti-polyamory. And I was like, okay, screw the articles. Let's just go to the Bible and let's look up what the Bible actually says about it. Does it actually, let's start with, does it say polyamory is a sin, or that polygamy is a sin, or having multiple wives or multiple husbands is a sin, right? That open and honest communication was really the moment that we took the bumpers off of our communication. Yeah. We realized, like, okay, no topic is off limits.
Yeah, we can talk about anything.
Anything is going to be. And then pause, we had to move.
Yep, pause. We moved from the house we were in to the house we're currently in now. So it was kind of a pause, but not a full pause. Because
we just put our focus on the move.
We put our focus on getting moved out of the house and getting everything settled here, and then we started right back up into it.
Yeah.
We definitely knew that we couldn't put a pin on it indefinitely. It's not something we wanted to do anymore, because that's an issue we had before.
We put a pin on things and
just never pulled the pin back out. It just stayed there building and building and building until it became some geyser where the pin shot 60,000 miles into the sky, into the atmosphere. So
then we discovered, we're calling that, we just discovered that we actually loved each other unconditionally. We picked the topic back up again.
Yes.
We went back to the topic of polyamory. So you guys know, polyamory encompasses polygamy, right?
Polygyny.
And polygamy is something that encompasses polygyny, which is one husband, multiple wives, And polyandry is one wife, multiple husbands. We did discover that in the Bible, there aren't any stories of one wife with multiple husbands. But we also did discover that in the Bible, women didn't really have much of a voice or a say. Fathers married their daughters off, whether they wanted to or not. Mm-hmm. The way women were treated back then was kind of like property. I wasn't really happy with that aspect of the Bible, but it's history. So, like it or not, that's kind of where it was. We started prayerfully diving into the Word. And that's not to say that we're Bible scholars on the subject.
No,
okay?
not.
Don't take our word for it. Don't
read
listen
yourself.
to
We encourage you to read for yourself.
Read the Bible yourself and pray about it and see
read
what
articles,
God...
read up, get smart, like we're trying to do.
So we realize that this discussion is probably best suited for mature Christians. Okay, so if you're not a mature Christian, just la through this part. You got to go back to the Word. You have to be willing to go back to the Word and read it for what it says, not seeking confirmation bias for the answers that you want because what you believe.
I get that. Okay, so when she says mature Christian, here's your test if you're a mature Christian. Can you go into that conversation like she was just talking about, like we talked about, and take your emotions out of it? Take your personal emotions out of it and say, I understand that it's an emotionally charged a thing. You take your emotions out of it and you look at it from a purely inquisitive.
You want to learn. You're doing it because you want to get to the bottom of the truth, not because you're looking to confirm what you think, feel, believe, have been taught over the past. That's the other benefit that came out of this experience is that we realized that we needed to strip away our preconceived ideas and beliefs on any of this subject, that we needed to, even when it comes to relationships, because again, when it comes to relationships, going into it, the preconceived idea or notion is that once a betrayal happens, it's going to be so hard.
It's over. Done.
The trust is gone. It's going to be like impossible to rebuild it, especially fully to restore it. And so we had to okay, we hear what the experts are saying. We know from experience that it's difficult, but let's put all that aside and see what it is, what it really is,
what it looks like for us,
what it actually can look like. And so we should get to the conclusion. What's our conclusion with polyandry? Is it a sin? Is it not a sin? Is it endorsed, encouraged by the Bible?
If it was an outright sin, then there wouldn't be rules to it, is what we discovered. So again, disclaimer, we're not looking for anyone to be in our relationship.
This is not an again disclaimer. This is a first time disclaimer.
Oh, I'm sorry. A first time disclaimer.
First time disclaimer. Do we believe that polyamory or polygyny or whatever is a sin? We do not.
No.
Unfortunately, I say unfortunately because I was actually looking for the Bible to tell me that it was a flat out sin. Because that would have made it easy. That would be like, and cross that off the list. Done. But unfortunately, that's not the conclusion we came to. We came to the conclusion that it seems that God at least allowed it and did not call it a sin, except for to kings and deacons, right? Yeah. Those are the only people that are forbidden from it. We're not even going to get into the theological debate of we're all kings and we're all deacons in the Bible. Okay, flat out, the Bible in those passages where it talks about it does not condemn it. It doesn't necessarily condone it, but God does regulate it, which obviously means God doesn't regulate sin. God isn't like, well, this much sin is okay as long as you do it this way. No, God says sin is sin and don't do it.
Yeah.
So finding that in the Bible, there are rules to living a polygynous life or polyamorous life, made us realize okay, so it's not a sin issue. It's not a salvation issue. That said, we came to the conclusion that it's not for us.
No.
That it's not for me. It's definitely not for him still.
Yes.
I was like, you were hoping I'd come to that conclusion, huh? But ultimately, in really thinking about it and praying about it, I prayed and I asked God, look, if this is not what you want for my life, if this is not what you want for our life, then I need you to remove those feelings from my heart because I don't know how to do it. You know, I straight up looked up articles of how to fall out of love with someone. Imagine that. Like there's some how to. But I tried. I did. I actually tried to look that up and got nowhere. I was like, I still feel like I do. And it was such a conflicting place to be, because I obviously at that point started feeling like I loved you too. And I knew that it was something that was not something you were interested in. So in that process, one of the tough conversations, I know some of you saw the post that I put regarding R&Vs, and there's a picture of Mark just kind of standing there looking at me. He was getting ready to walk away.
Yeah.
He was getting ready to walk away to go think and talk to himself, because this was a lot for him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is a lot to process.
It was a lot for him to process. And when he came back, I just had this like crazy urge. I just wanted to get in the bed and cuddle with him. I just wanted to give him a hug. And we kind of rediscovered the cuddle at that moment. We rediscovered that such a basic, no duh ingredient that we were missing in our relationship. I did want to try polyandry. I did. I was interested at that moment in seeing if we could somehow make it work. And when he came back, he's like, okay, well, this isn't something that I want, but I love you and I want you to be happy, so I'll consider it. But you said you need time
to process
it, to try to wrap his head around it, and we need to definitely have like boundaries and rules. So we even got that far into trying to entertain this idea.
Yeah.
We learned after he got back that sex does increase bonding when done right. When done right, and by that I mean when you are focused on your spouse.
Yes.
Right? When you go into it not seeking just pleasure for yourself. When you're actually seeking to pleasure your spouse. Oh my God, she said that. Yeah. Yes. When you do it right, it does increase the bonding between you.
Yes.
So we started having lots of sex.
Yes, we did. Physical touch is a love language.
It is,
right?
especially his.
It's my number one.
Especially his.
But still, beyond just that, I mean, I think we were trying to bond on all levels at that point. Physically, emotionally, I think we were starting to fire. At this point, spiritually, we were researching the word together. We were talking, just reconnecting with each other on all levels in our relationship, which is what led to the recommitment to us, right?
But at that point, it was still a matter of giving it to God and whether this was something that was for us.
We had to have,
or not.
We had to have faith that God would give us our answer.
He definitely had to have faith and straight up give me the rope to hang myself.
Yeah.
Because at any moment in time, this really could have gone sideways.
Yes.
At any moment in time, he could have been like, you know what? I'm out.
I'm done.
First you cheat on me, and now you're talking about having multiple husbands.
Yeah.
Like, what? This crazy woman?
Yeah.
And even in that time, he allowed me, okay, let me rephrase. It's wrong. He was okay with me going on a couple of friend dates. We call it friend dates, but it's where I met with him and we would talk. We would talk things out. And
him as in not me.
Yeah, him as in not him. Me and
this other person.
X.
Yeah.
He allowed me to go out and go to drink coffee with him, meet him at a bar.
She keeps saying aloud, but that's not what it was.
It's such a restructuring of the mind.
It's a restructuring of the thought process.
Yeah.
We spoke about it.
He doesn't allow me to anything. I do what I want, okay?
We spoke about it as two mature people and decided as a couple that it was okay.
I said I needed to go talk to him.
Yeah.
And you said, okay, that's what you need.
And that's what you need. Understanding that's something that she needed for her. And being okay with that. And allowing her to figure her emotions and herself out. Giving her that space and her feeling safe in that space to do that.
And in that is when I realized that this man really loves me. I mean, he really loves me, that he's willing to just set aside how he feels about it and just give me the rope to hang myself. Again, like, hey, if she doesn't want to be with me, then she gonna mess this up and I'll know, you know? And similarly, I felt like if he's trusting me this early on to just go and meet him and talk to him, like, dude, anything can happen. But just knowing that he was trusting me, and that really made an impact on how I felt about him. It straight up made me like love him more. And that's when we both realized that we loved each other no matter what.
Yeah.
Like no matter what,
no matter what life throws at us or what life may bring, we know that we love each other
and want to do life together
and want to be together no matter what.
So again, at this point, for the foreseeable future, yes, we believe that polyandry is not a sin, biblically speaking, but it's not something that we are pursuing.
Or practicing.
Not practicing or pursuing.
Yeah.
So you'll know. We're just learning about each other, loving each other, raising our kids together. That's where we're at. You're enough for me.
And you're enough for me.
So if that ever changes, we'll update you in a special edition.
But for now, this is the edition.
Does everyone deserve a second chance?
It depends on the person. I mean, it depends on you.
It depends on the behavior.
It depends on the person. That if a person has an R&V, no matter what it is, and they are actually genuinely remorseful, and that's, you feel that they are genuinely remorseful, and you feel like they deserve the second chance, that's your decision to make. I can't, and Raquel won't either. Neither of us will tell you that everyone deserves a second chance, because it depends
sometimes
on you.
2 chances, 3 chances, 4 chances is necessary and is okay. It's on a case-by-case situation, because again, the goal in giving a person another chance is that you have to first see that this person is genuinely sorry for the hurt they caused you, and that they're taking steps and making changes to better your relationship.
Yeah.
If this person doesn't seem sorry, if they're not even apologetic and their actions show that they're still
or you don't feel like they're taking steps to make things better, open communication lines and talk about it and talk to you and try and improve your relationship, then again, it's person to person.
Another question. How do you know when to throw in the towel? How about this? If you feel like it's time to throw in the towel,
it's probably time.
It's probably time. But before you do that, go get counseling.
Go get counseling.
Go talk to someone who has been through it. Don't just go talk to your friend who has a great marriage and a great husband and dump on her or him. Talk to someone who has been through it, or a counselor who has been through it and succeeded, like genuinely.
And I think
through.
My recommendation from experience here, from our experience, is no matter whether or not you decide to stay with the person or not. Let's say it's divorce time, you're done, you're out, whatever. You still need to unpack the relationship with that person and try and do
where it all went wrong. As growth, as personal growth, because you want to know what impact, what role you played in your relationship being where it's at.
And you don't want to carry that on to the future of your life, no matter what relationship you're talking about, family, friends, children, other people that you bring into your life. You don't want to carry that on.
You don't want that to become part of you.
You don't want that to become part of your story. So
the recap: when an R&V occurs, once again, a relationship norm violation. In this case, the relationship norm violation was an affair. When that happens, you go into crisis mode.
Yep.
Crisis mode is the hurt partner is very angry, and a lot of times the person who committed the R&V is like, I don't even want to hear it. Like, I don't care that you're mad. I knew you'd be mad. That's why I did it. So, person who is committing the R&V right this second, yes, your partner is going to be mad when they find out. And they will find out. Whether it's because you tell them, or because God reveals it to them in a dream, or you get sloppy and you drop a hint, whatever the case may be, at some point, they will become aware. And you need to recognize that they are going to be upset. And you need to sit there and listen to them. Okay? Take a deep breath. Listen to them. Don't yell back at them. Just sit there and listen to them. Whether you want to stay with them or not after that, sit there and listen to them. Okay? Especially if this is a co-parent, if this is a parent to your children, you want them to become a healthy individual. And step one is they need to get it out. They need to express themselves. Then after that, you need to get stabilized. You need to get into a place where you realize, okay, you're really hurt with me. I'm really hurt too. Let's talk about how we feel and why. Let's talk about how we got there. That's insight. You need to get insight into how you got to that situation. Whether you allowed this person to mistreat you over time, you allowed them to ignore you when you were talking to them and expressing yourselves and they were just blowing you off. How many times you let that happen, that's on you. That was on me.
Yeah.
That was something that even in his faults, I had to recognize that I also played a role in that because I just let him be emotionally detached. I let him.
She didn't force it to
I
change.
didn't push it. I didn't say like, "Yo, this is the line," and
you crossed it, and we need to figure it out. Yeah.
I just sat there year after year, just kind of like, "Well, someday he'll change," and then you have to attune to each other.
Yes.
You have to be able to be aware of the other's feelings. You have to talk, tolerate the other person. Tolerate their differing points of view. By the way, tolerance is being able to listen without casting your judgment at someone else. And then having that non-defensive response to things that we disagree with. That's a huge one.
Yeah.
And then just having empathy for where they're coming from. Understanding that their thoughts and feelings come from like a lifelong experiences.
Then you have to figure out your conflict cycle and how you reconnect, like disconnect, connect, disconnect, reconnect, and where you're
going wrong.
Where you're going wrong.
Trust me, you're going wrong somewhere. If
so you can set up your repair cycle, so you can try and repair things between you, even if you're not going to stay together. And
even if you're not going to stay together, you're going to be, as parents, you're going to be co-parents. You're going to have differences and conflicts in your parenting. You need to know how to get through that without attacking each other, without making your child feel like they have to pick one parent or the other,
or putting them in the middle of anything. So this all leads back to trust. All of these things will lead back to you trusting each other as partners again.
So warning, in doing this, even though you're not doing it for the goal of getting back with your spouse, it could happen.
It could happen.
In our case, we were such good students that it did happen. So I want to point out, like, we're not special, okay? We're no more special than anybody else. He's no more saintly than anyone else. He's no more a bigger man than anyone else. It's a matter of recognizing the steps to become a healthier person and doing the work, putting in the work. Even if not for your relationship, but for yourself.
Choosing to be happy for yourself, because that's the step one, is you want to be happy, right? And then you decide that you want to be happy with this person. So you want to be happy with this person, but you have to be happy with yourself. So
this person's not going to make you happy.
Yeah.
You going to make you happy. So this is why we've said that R&Vs can lead to a better relationship. And I know a lot of people argued with that. Like, don't say that. That's not right. How dare you?
How dare you?
It can, because again, it came from a place where, well, obviously we don't recommend it, but it came from a place where we were at done.
Yeah.
We were at done.
Where's
give me the check.
Yeah,
where's the check? I need a sign, and I'm out. And that's when we realized, like, well,
we don't recommend starting here.
No.
We don't recommend starting where we were at. And this is one of the many reasons we're doing these videos, is so that you don't start where we're at. So you can try and recognize that you're in trouble or you're treading water before you get to this spot where we were, and you have to go through what we went through to get where we are now. Our story is a story of resilience, and that's how we see it now. We see our relationship and our story as a story of resilience.
Again, we didn't even go into this hoping to be a story of resilience or hoping to even be together. We were just like, I don't know. I wasn't happy, you guys. I was not happy going into these conversations. I was coming from a place of I felt miserable and I felt unheard for so many years, and I felt like I didn't want to be with you anymore. And obviously he came from a place of hurt, of deep, deep hurt and anger, and yet, we're here because we did the steps. We did the work.
We did the work.
So anyone can do this. You just have
to
do
the work on ourselves, and we did the work with each other. Because it's work with yourself as well. I mean, this isn't just about us working with each other. We had to realize things on our own, realize things about ourselves to be able to realize stuff with our relationship.
How it impacted our relationship. So how do you recognize that you are a healthy person, emotionally speaking, right? Say we all have some kind of trauma or bad experience that jaded us in personal lives, whether it was from childhood, a parent, a family member, friend, or past relationship. How do you recognize
I think being able
that
to
you're
talk
healed then?
without being able to talk about it without it becoming an emotional event. Being able to speak about the trauma or about whatever without it becoming something where you're reliving it right then.
That the emotions are fully engaged
Yeah.
at that moment. Which is why we can talk about me having an affair
And neither
and
of us
going
are-
on friend dates and all this.
All of this without any kind of animosity or anger or
We kind of laugh sometimes.
we kind of laugh a
It's
little
not
bit sometimes.
disrespectful,
It's
and
not-
it doesn't say, again, I've heard this past week, it does not speak to whether I was repented or not. It does not speak to whether I have been forgiven by God or not. It doesn't speak to any of that.
Yeah.
It speaks to we're coming from a place of we have healed from this. My husband forgives me. I accepted that forgiveness. So it's no longer there. It's
Yeah.
just something that it happened in the past, but neither of us gets emotionally.
It's not an emotionally charged issue anymore.
So what comes next?
We have to continually work. We have to continually update our love map. We have to continually update,
Because again, love maps just refers to you as a person, how you feel, how you change.
Yeah.
Like when you're talking about the 5 love languages, it's good to every few years do the quiz again and see where you're at, because that's something that can change over time.
yes.
Just because you wore that in your early 20s doesn't mean that in your 30s you're still that person.
And-
You might need a different style of communication to feel love.
And every day, it's in the beginning, these first initial things, I call them emotional Super Bowls, because it was just this huge conversations that would
We
last
both felt
hours upon
drained
hours,
after that.
and both of us would want to lay down with a headache because we had just gotten all this stuff out. But now we're at the point now where we have these conversations and we feel great about it, and we're
We
happy.
enjoy talking to each
We
other.
enjoy talking to each
Ooh,
other.
let's talk about this.
Ooh, let's talk about that.
Come meet me outside. I want to talk to you.
Yeah, let's talk about this or that or the other, because we have that ability now, because we're open and honest, and we feel like we have the space in our relationship to be that way with each other and to feel safe and to talk about whatever, and you're not going to feel judged or
wrong.
or
Just,
wrong or feel like you can't say it if that's how you feel. And that's a very freeing and liberating feeling in a relationship, to have that kind of open talk and space with each other, and understanding that we change over time and with circumstances that happen to us. So
Having children,
retiring
from the military,
all of it changes you, and
getting a new job,
yeah, all of it changes
graduating
you.
from school.
All of
There's
it
so much.
changes you. All of it
Does
changes
it?
you.
Are you sure?
So
How about getting a new dog?
all of it changes you. So in that change, you have to communicate with your partner. You have to be able to talk to them so that they can get updated on how you've changed, so they can either change with you or accept the change that has changed. Which sounds kind of
Accept
redundant.
the change that has changed.
Accept the change that's changed. Accept who you are now. Accept the changes that you've made. And I think that's a constant, and that's going to have to be a constant in your relationship for you to be able to be happy and healthy,
So
not
at
only
this
for
point,
yourself, but
going
for each other.
forward, we're just going to focus on dating each other,
Mm-hmm.
remaining open and honest in our conversations. Even when you have a thought that seems inappropriate, that doesn't seem right, share that with your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Like you would your best friend. What? Yes.
So again, we're not licensed marriage counselors, just regular old atypical couple sharing
But
our
we're only
story.
atypical because, we're sharing our story. That's literally the only
That's
thing
really
that makes us atypical
yeah.
here.
Sharing our story, hoping to bring hope.
Taking a break.
We're going
next
to take a break next week, for the holidays, obviously, and be back in January with all kinds of topics. They're going to be shorter. Yeah, right.
week. No, they will be. They will be. We're in like 10 to 15 minutes. Stop laughing at me.
10 to 15 minutes.
10 to 15 minutes. 10 to 15 minutes. I promise. Scout's honor. How does that go? I was never a scout. What?
It's 3 fingers.
Oh.
It's not hang 10. It's not, I don't know what you're doing here. It's 3 fingers. But anyway, we're going to try and get up to 10 or 15 minutes. Maybe, who knows? I say maybe, who knows?
That's
because
probably a goal. We'll still post some stuff on the page. And
we're still going to keep it going.
Oh, and a cool, exciting news. We are going back to school.
Yes. Both of us.
What are we going to school for, babe?
Psychology.
And sociology. Yes,
Right.
because amazingly, in all of this, we learned how much we didn't know. And we don't know how much we don't even know at this point.
We learned that we like learning about it.
Yes, we definitely like learning about it. It's something that we bond doing.
So
we love those moments. And trust me, when you experience it with your spouse, we love those moments when we're like, oh, that's why. You know, like, oh, wow, all this time I've been acting this way and I didn't even realize where it came from. Those moments are actually really exciting.
And we're still growing. We still listen to podcasts all the time about marriages and reconnecting and all of this. And we still do like quizzes. I mean, we still do all that stuff. And you got to keep doing that. I mean, the minute you think,
I'm good, I got this.
Yeah, the minute you think I'm good, I got this, I'm done, good to go. That's the minute you're going to screw this up. Because I know that for myself. You know, it's never going to end.
He thought we were married, so we were good.
Yeah. Marriage is not the end. It's not like, okay, I won.
Reach the destination.
Destination complete. It's never about the destination. It's always going to have to be about the journey. And the journey for us is going to continue over and over and over again, and to continue to listen to people that have gone through this aside from us.
Oh, yes. If you are a couple like us who have gone through an R&V like us, and you have gotten to the other side and been happier for it, please reach out to us.
Yeah,
we
please.
would love to talk to you.
We would love to speak to you.
We would love to do a segment with you. Because what we need to do is normalize couples who stay happily together after an affair. Who are happier for it.
Or any R&V. I mean, anything that you feel is a relationship norm violation. Anything that, rocked your marriage because you found out about it. Man did it. Woman did it. It doesn't matter. We would love to speak to you. And
we want to get.
We know
your
there's
voice
more
out
of us
there
out
too.
there.
There's more of us out there.
We know there's more of us out there.
We know about it because we get them in our DMs.
Yeah. So.
And we will not put you on blast, but we will call you out and say you need to talk about it because people think this is so rare and this never happens and we're so special and we're so different. But the truth is, no, people just don't talk about it. That's the only thing that makes us different here.
That's true. So, I would definitely think that you should reach out.
So, see y'all in January.
Yes.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year.
Happy all of it.
Yeah, we'll be back before Three Kings Day. Was it January 4th or something?
I think the 4th.
Either way, first week of January, we'll be back.
We'll post before we come back live.
So. And if you have any questions for him, especially, man to man.
You can DM me.
You can private message him. If you have any questions for me, like how could you, how dare, no. How did you talk about this? How did you bring this up?
I'm open. I'm open to talk. I'm a real chatty nowadays. So
we're not experts.
We're not experts,
but we can speak from our experience.
Yeah.
And
so if you want to talk to me, man or a woman, even from a woman's perspective, you want to speak to me and DM me and say, "Hey, how did you do this?" Or how did you come? How were you able?
What
to do
recommendations
this?
you have
what
for me?
What recommendations do you have for me? I'm more than willing to talk to you.
How do I approach this with my husband?
How from a woman's perspective, how do I talk to my husband about this? And maybe we can help you. Or she can help you DM her. Or DM or post to the page.
Or private message the page too.
Or private message the page, yeah. Either way. We just want you to know that we're here and that, we want to help people, and this is why we're doing it. It's really the biggest thing. So all right, that is all for this time, I think. So we're going to go. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoy the video.
I hope you learned something.
And
again, the podcast that we listen to
is Love Hour.
Was the Love Hour with Mr. Kev on Stage and his wife, Mrs. Kev on Stage. Shout out to them. I know he probably had no idea when he made that joke about like, she gonna teach you how to cheat on your spouse and be happy or whatever. No, he probably had no idea that was going to make such a huge impact on our journey,
yes,
on our marriage, on how we went about this.
Yeah.
So that podcast is with Dr. Morgan.
It's episode
Johnson,
89.
Episode 89?
Episode 89.
Okay.
Trust
So,
Recovery After Infidelity with Morgan Johnson.
They have quite a few good ones, so you can
we've
start
listened to a
there.
bunch. There's like 140 of them, but 89 is the number that we listened to after this, and that's what helped us. All right, till next time.